She picked me up. We immediately went to the doctor, and we sat down with my doctor, and we were like, okay, we need to figure this out. Hey guys, so today I'm going to be talking about my journey to being diagnosed with my chronic illnesses and just like what led up to that and how my life is now. And I'm just going to talk in depth about my chronic illnesses too. So let's get on to the video. I've always been active like my whole life. I started out in gymnastics, just rec gymnastics, and did that until I was about 11. And then I quit and I decided to do cross country. So I loved running. I actually really wanted to do like track and field and do like sprinting, but they didn't have that available at the time because I was homeschooled, and it was just kind of crazy. Now, you know, as a homeschooler, you can do sports at schools, which is really nice, but back then you couldn't. So anyways, I got onto this cross country team, and I enjoyed it for the most part, but as the season went on, I was starting to have like a bunch of injuries. So the first was my knees were literally killing me. Like, I was only 11, and I couldn't even walk up the stairs without pain. I couldn't even crouch down without pain. Like, it was really, really bad. And then I also developed Sever's disease, which is the inflammation of the growth plate in your heel. So it's from a lot of pounding. Like, if you're doing a lot of pounding exercises while you're growing, you'll most likely have Sever's disease. It's very common, you know. It is treatable, but it's kind of hard to treat in a way. So I was actually put in 2 casts for that. It was only on 1 foot, but like I was in a cast for a few weeks, and then they tried to take it off, and I still couldn't walk, and so then I was in another. So it was kind of this fiasco. So after all that happened, I decided to quit and go back to gymnastics. And so I was about 13 at the time, and I decided to pursue team gymnastics. So before I had done recreational gymnastics, and now and then I really wanted to compete. So the gym that I was going to before I quit, they didn't have a team program, but they had a really excellent rec program. So like, I don't know, it was essentially the same as team gymnastics. So it was essentially the same as competitive gymnastics, but we just didn't compete. So they really worked us hard. We got good conditioning and stuff. And so when I went back to gymnastics, I went to a different gym and just tried out for the recreational classes. And so recreational gymnastics at this gym just wasn't very challenging, and I was really bored. And so I wanted to do team. Okay, I got on the team, did competitive gymnastics, I think until I was like 14, and then I quit after state meet. So I had 2 seasons in team gymnastics, and after I quit, all the problems started happening. So I was still exercising like after I quit, because I was working out a lot, like, you know, like 12 hours a week, which really isn't that much compared to some gymnasts. But in the fall I was doing 12 hours a week, and in the summer I was doing like 20 hours a week in the summer. So it was a lot of exercise. And so when I stopped, I kind of just stopped that heavy exercise, and I just started doing stuff in the morning before I went to school. So I literally would get up at 5 a.m. and work out, and just doing like little conditioning things. It wasn't like crazy intense, but anyways, so then so I was still 14 at the time. I went to my friend's birthday party, and oh, also, I forgot to mention all this. Oh my gosh. Okay, so my childhood, this all ties in, but I'm getting all scrambled. This stuff is so hard to remember, and like I thought about sitting down and writing it out so that I would be like properly planned, but I just can't even do that. So, did you see all the dust? It's fine, it's fine. But, so as a child, I had Rolandic seizures, which, it's a type of seizure that you outgrow, and I did outgrow it by age 5. And then I also had stomach problems, like really bad stomach problems. No one could figure out what that was from. Like, there was never any answers for that. And then I also had some dizziness as a child, like when I was playing outside on the playground at school, and just things like that. So that's a little back information. So I've always had some type of symptoms, you know, the injuries in sports, and then, you know, as a child I had seizures, and then I had like lots of stomach problems and dizziness. Also, I need to add in, when I went back and did competitive gymnastics, I was constantly injured, like to the point where like people stopped believing me. Like they were like, "Are you really injured?" I'm like, "Yes." Like, anyways, but yeah, so I like broke 2 bones while I was in competitive gymnastics. I like sprained my ankle twice. I had a lot of injuries. I had like elbow injuries. I had tendonitis in my wrist here. So I had all these injuries. So that's just a backstory. I'm getting so scrambled. Anyways, now, so one day I went to my friend's birthday party, and it was a spend the night birthday party, and I think it was just me and her. Yeah, it was just me and her at this party. She just had me over for a little celebration, and I was still 14 at the time, and this was after I quit gymnastics. And the next morning, I actually, like, I can't even remember the details too much, but like my stomach started hurting really, really bad. And then I basically like blacked out. I didn't like fall to the ground, but I almost fainted pretty much, and I had like lost my vision. And so that was like weird, and we were like, what the heck? Like what was this? And like my mom was like really worried about it. And like so that happened in the morning. And so the rest of that day I was like stuck in bed. I was extremely tired. Like I just didn't feel good or whatever. But then, like, the next day I was fine, and so I just continued on with life, and we didn't really think much about it. And then, so I also talked about how I would get up at, like, 5 a.m. before school and work out. And so during a few of those workout sessions, the same thing happened during the workout session. So, like, I started feeling bad, my stomach started hurting, and then I, like, would black out or almost black out, and then I would be stuck in bed for the rest of the day, like not really able to go to school and like not able to really function. So I was like really fatigued and stuff. And then so like I don't know, we were I can't even remember if we were like running to the doc. We obviously didn't run to the doctor. Like my mom is a nurse, and so like yes, we were thinking about what could be causing this, but we weren't like, oh my gosh, like I'm dying or whatever. Like we just, we kind of just carried on, because I ended up recovering from these things, and it wasn't a lot at that point to make us think, oh my gosh, this is like something. Because also with the working out thing, I was getting up at 5 a.m. and I wasn't eating breakfast before, I wasn't drinking a lot of water, and so we just didn't know, like it could have been something like that. And also another side note, whenever I was a competitive gymnast, on the weekends, me and my mom, we went shopping a lot. Like, I don't know, it's just something we did. It was really fun. But my mom started noticing, before all this happened a little bit. It wasn't like during all of this, but she noticed that I was getting really tired just shopping. Like, just going through like 1 or 2 stores, I like had me wiped out, and I like needed to sit down, and I was tired. Like, I didn't really feel bad or anything, but I was literally just so wiped out from that. So that's another side note. But anyways, okay, so yes, I started having those little episodes like in the mornings after I worked out. And then things started happening, like I started getting really bad headaches. But then also at the time, my school had just switched us to iPads as opposed to books. So we literally were on an iPad all day long. So I ended up going to get my vision checked, and they said that I had slight farsightedness, and that could be causing the headache, so I got glasses and all of that stuff. Okay, whatever. Random side note. There's a lot of side notes, but it all, like, in the end, really, like, comes together, and you're like, wow, okay, that all makes sense now. But anyways, so after these episodes in the morning, I started experiencing, like, extreme dizziness. So first, it just started out like I would get up in the morning and I would get dressed, and I wore my hair in a ponytail a lot. So, like, I was, an ex-gymnast. I used to wear my hair in a ponytail a lot. So I was like, okay, my hair's going to be up all the time. And it was just more comfortable for me. And so I'd be getting ready in the morning, and I would lean over to put my hair up in a ponytail, and I would get so dizzy I would almost fall over. And I was like, what is going on? And then there were also some days, like during this period of time, where I would wake up and I couldn't even get out of bed because I was so dizzy. I'm pretty sure that there was a day, there was only one day that I didn't go to school from it. Usually I could just get up and I'd be okay, but there was one day I remember specifically, like I remember it, I like I could not get out of bed because I was so dizzy. And so yeah, so that was going on. And then I'm trying to think of the timeline here. So this is like late September. So my friend's birthday party, it was in September. I can't remember if it was on her actual birthday or beforehand, but it was like September, either September 3rd, I think it was September 13th. I could be wrong. I don't remember it actually being on her birthday. So it was like a weekend before or something like that. But anyway, so yeah, like September. So all this was going on in September. And then I started having like these episodes a lot more, these like pre-syncope episodes, which is like symptoms that you have before fainting. And so I never actually like passed out cold, but I got really dizzy. My heart was racing. I felt like I was gonna faint. And so actually, let's see. So I had one episode. We went pumpkin picking, and I had an episode there. And I ended up just staying in the car while my mom and brother picked pumpkins, which was really sad for me. Like, it was kind of hitting me a little bit like, okay, what is going on with me? And so I had that. And then I also had an episode one time we were eating lunch, I think it was. And right after we ate lunch, I just felt so bad. I felt like I was going to faint. And like at that point, my mom and dad were both thinking, well, maybe like she has diabetes or something. Like, I don't know. We just didn't know. And then at that point, we were like, okay, we really need to figure this out because this is too much. And so yeah, we were thinking it was diabetes because it was kind of happening too, like after I would eat or when I hadn't been eating, something weird. Then it was like the beginning of October. I ended up going on a fall retreat with my school, and so like I really didn't want to go, but they talked me into it because I was having all these problems and I was really nervous. And sure enough, like, you know, I look back and it was a blessing that I went. It really, really was, because it was kind of my last like hoorah before like being completely decapacitated. But anyways, I'll get to that. But yeah, I felt bad the entire time. You know, also, okay, I totally am forgetting all these things. So after I quit gymnastics, like, is when all this stuff started happening, right? And so, I have always been a pretty big eater. Like, I was always really, really skinny, but I would eat a lot, and I wouldn't, like, not finish meals and stuff. But I started, like, not finishing dinner and just not being hungry at all for dinner, and I actually started losing weight, and, so that was another side note. But I remember at the fall retreat, I had the hardest time eating, and I literally just had to sit there and force food into my face because I knew, like, if I'm dealing with some kind of blood sugar issue, I've got to keep eating. And so that was the thing at the time we thought it was, and so I was always having snacks with me, like I was trying to eat meals like on time, but it was hard because I wasn't hungry and I just like didn't have an appetite, and I was super, super skinny. Okay, and then so there's probably some more things that go on there, but anyways, I get back from the fall retreat, you know, I survive, and I remember one day, and this was the final straw, so this was like almost Halloween. This was the week before Halloween, so Halloween's the 31st, 30th, 29th, 28th, 27th, this would have been the 27th of October, yeah. So I went to school, I was on my way to school, and at the time I couldn't drive because I was only 14, so my dad was driving us, me and my brother, and what happened was I started feeling like just that stomach pain again, and this was another symptom I had. I felt like I had no energy at all, like I was extremely fatigued, like I couldn't even, and I'm like back then I was so in love with like listening to music and singing in the car. Like me and my dad and brother, we always like listened to great songs, and like I would always sing, and I didn't even have the energy to sing. And it almost just felt like I couldn't even move or breathe. I was so tired and like weak. And so that symptom had happened a few times, but this was a particular situation where it was really bad, and I was on my way to school. And let me just say, kids, listen to your body. I should have gone home. I should not have gone to school anyways. But I felt bad. Like I was like, I just need to go to school. Like my dad has to go to work. Like I don't want to make him drive all the way back home because we lived like 30 minutes from our school, and so it was kind of like a big ordeal to drive there. So I didn't want him to have to take me home, and so I ended up going. And I remember my first class was math, and I was sitting in there in math class, and I was still feeling that weakness, but not as bad. But I started getting this pain, this like chest pain, and it was almost like it was on my left side, like where my heart is. But anyways, it was pain where my heart was. Like my heart felt heavy. That's kind of how I described it. It felt like it was just working really hard, and it felt like it was heavy. And so after math, I decided not to go to my next class, and I decided to go to the nurse and call my mom, because I was like, I don't really know what's going on here. Like, I've been having all these weird symptoms, and I'm kind of freaked out. And another thing too is before this instant, we had gone to the doctor, and my doctor was doing like blood tests, check for like a neuroendocrine tumor. Like a tumor, she was doing all these tests. So we were like in the process of that, and we hadn't gotten any answers yet. And so I started walking to the nurse, and I actually had to go upstairs. I should have taken the elevator. I don't know why I didn't do these things. Like, really thinking back, I was so dumb to take the stairs. So I took the stairs, and then it was like a long hallway to get to the nurse. And as I was walking on this long hallway, I started blacking out, like how I had been experiencing these things. And so I almost fainted, but luckily I made it close enough to where like the nurse could hear me. And I don't even know what I was saying, but it was clear that I was like, something was wrong. And so she like had me sit down, and she gave me like a Sprite, I think. And then we called my mom, and we went from school that day. When she picked me up, we immediately went to the doctor, and we sat down with my doctor, and we were like, okay, we need to figure this out. So that day she set up an appointment for neurology. She set up an appointment for cardiology. She set up for me to get an EKG, an EEG, all these tests, like every test that week. She set it up for that week because this was a Monday. And she's a really good doctor, and so she didn't know what was going on, but she was worried too. We were worried that there was something wrong with my heart. Like, we were worried that it was like a tumor or something. We just didn't know what it was. And and so that week we went to all these appointments and all these things, and finally the last day, Friday, which was Halloween. I hope I'm getting these dates right. I hope I didn't like miscount or anything. If I did, please forgive me, because like I don't know. But anyway, so finally, Friday, Halloween comes. So I go to my cardiologist appointment. So, and then, so I'd had all these appointments. I even drove out of town for my neurology appointment. She didn't really have anything to say. She didn't know, really. She just said to increase my fluids. Like, I don't even know. She didn't really know. And so it was on Friday, the 31st, October 31st, Halloween. It was a great day. I was diagnosed by my cardiologist with POTS. So what POTS is it stands for postural orthostatic tachycardic syndrome, and it is basically, the best way I know how to describe it is my brain, something in my brain called the autonomic nervous system is really stupid, and it doesn't know how to do its job. So it fails to tell my heart to beat faster when I stand up and like pump the blood around my body. So like when I stand up or I stand for a long time, my brain is not getting enough oxygen because my heart is not being told how to properly do that. Because, your brain has to tell everything in your body what to do, which is kind of great, because what if your brain fails then, anyways. So my brain doesn't tell my heart to pump the blood around my body very well. Like, yes, my heart's still beating, but my heart has to work a lot harder than a normal person's to get the blood around my body. And so basically the autonomic nervous system, I want to talk about this too, but basically your autonomic nervous system controls everything you don't think about. So breathing, your heart beating, your blood pressure, your digestion, like everything that you don't think about that your body does, that's what your autonomic nervous system controls. And so what I have is the dysfunction of my autonomic nervous system, which is actually called dysautonomia. And a lot of things can come from dysautonomia because it's like an umbrella term, and POTS is under the dysautonomia diagnosis. So dysautonomia, POTS, they're practically like connected, but it just means that my autonomic nervous system does not work very well. So, after this appointment, I continued to decline, and I had to go on homebound from school, so I was not able to go to school anymore. I had to start the homebound program at my school, so like and eventually my mom just started homeschooling me again. But there was a while there that I was too sick to even do any kind of school. I remember like in the beginning stages, I would sit down and try to do my schoolwork, and I would just cry because I couldn't think. And so with POTS, like, it's a lot of other things too. I had a lot of brain fog, which is just caused from not a lot of like oxygen in your brain, so you can't really think straight. It's really hard to like remember things and focus, and like I would forget like my sentence mid-sentence, like I would forget what I was saying mid-sentence, which a lot of people do that, but when you have brain fog, it's like 10 times worse. I was extremely fatigued, extremely dizzy. My heart, oh my gosh, my heart raced so much. I would literally just walk across the room and my heart rate would be like over 130. Like, it was ridiculous. And so I was really sick, and I was really sick like that for about 2 years, which is like crazy to think about, but I literally was pretty much homebound for the most part for about 2 years. Now towards the end of those 2 years, I definitely got out more and like I did better, but it was a very gradual process for me to get better. And actually what helped me get better was this exercise program called the Levine Protocol. And it basically just builds you back up, and it conditions your heart. And so for me personally, I think what caused my POTS to flare or to be triggered was me quitting gymnastics. So I was really, really active, and then I just completely quit and stopped doing that kind of exercise. And I think my body was just like, wow, we cannot cope. So anyways, yes, so that was 2 years. And also during those 2 years, I was also diagnosed with Ehlers-Danlos syndrome and mast cell activation disorder. So mast cell, I'll start with mast cell. So, you know, like when you have an allergic reaction, your body releases histamine, and it causes like, you know, your throat to swell, you get hives, you can have like high blood pressure, high heart rate, like those kind of things. So my body releases too much of that, and so like I'm really sensitive to chemicals, I'm really sensitive to like strong smells. I'm not as bad anymore because I'm on medication to control the how much histamine my body releases. But yeah, so that was another factor. And another side note, my POTS started out as the regular classic POTS, which is associated with low blood pressure. So you stand up, your blood pressure drops, and your heart rate goes up. But then I started taking this medicine, and I had a reaction to it it was January of 2015. So I was diagnosed in 2014. That sounds right. Yeah, so it was in January, and I actually had to go to the hospital because my blood pressure and heart rate were so high from this medicine reaction. And so after that, I had high blood pressure. So I would stand up and my blood pressure would rise and my heart rate would rise. And so I kind of like switched like in the middle of my illness, which is weird. So now like my issue is high blood pressure. So I get high, and so I still feel like I'm going to faint, but more so like I'm going to die if I stand for too long or if I do too much exercise or whatever. Okay, and then also I got diagnosed with Ehlers-Danlos syndrome, which is a connective tissue disorder. And connective tissue is basically the glue that holds your body together. So if you can imagine, it's kind of chaotic. So what I experienced with that is frequent joint dislocations and subluxations. My joints sublux. So basically a subluxing joint is a joint that partially dislocates. So it doesn't dislocate all the way. And I'm sure most of you know what a dislocation is, but like it's when your joint pops out of its socket. So it's really fun. So like a partial dislocation would just be like halfway, but it's still extremely painful. And then I also have like joint pain. I'm always in pain. Every single day I have pain from this EDS. And but also this is kind of connects it all. When I got diagnosed with EDS, they were telling us that EDS can cause severe stomach problems, which I had as a child. EDS can cause POTS, which I had. EDS can cause like dizziness and headaches, which I had. So it was like it all made sense. EDS was that diagnosis that like totally made everything make sense. It was like, oh, okay, like this all makes sense what I'm doing here. And yeah, so this was like super long, and I feel like I'm forgetting a lot of information. I guess I should do an update. So right now I'm doing okay. So after the 2-year mark, I was completely healthy. Like I was exercising again, and actually last year I was running a lot. Like I did a few 5Ks, and I was like really good. And then I started exercising too much, and I went to Canada right after I'd been exercising a lot, and I completely stopped working out while I was in Canada because I was on a mission trip. I wasn't trying to work out. And I came back, and I basically had POTS all over again. It was really flared. But I went back to my exercise protocol, the Levine protocol, and now I'm doing much, much better, and I can actually leave the house again without feeling like I'm dying. But I feel like I'm leaving out so much, but this video is getting so long, and my battery light is blinking right now, and I don't want it to die. So if y'all have any kind of questions, please comment them down below, and I will make another video and answer them if there's enough, or I will just answer them in the comments. But please, don't hesitate to ask. If I made things super confusing, just ask me about it. I'm not offended, at all. I'm happy to talk about it. It's a part of my story, and I'm really thankful. And I want to say too, I would not have gotten through it if it weren't for God. God was my rock during it. So I could not have done this without the help of my family and my friends. So thankful to my mom, who fought for me and fought to get me diagnosed and fought to find treatment for me. Yeah, but if y'all have any questions, please comment them down below, and I'll be happy to answer them. And I'm really sorry if this was all over the place. It's very scattered for me, extremely scattered. But yeah, thank you guys so much for watching. If you have a chronic illness, let me know down below, and I would love to talk to you, because I know it can be very isolating sometimes. So thank you guys so much for watching. Bye.